the Irish Network of Learning Cities. Before I go any further, we are recording the meeting. So for those of you, just to know that, you just press continue will come up on your screen, and just press the continue button that says that you've accepted the meeting is being recorded. And if you're comfortable with leaving your video on for when we go to the group conversation, please feel free to do that. Yvonne Lane, our coordinator, has muted everybody's mic, so we shouldn't have any background noise. So that's the housekeeping out of the way, but I was welcoming everybody to the meeting, and I wanted to welcome the members from the Irish Network of Learning Cities. And our Irish Network of UNESCO Learning Cities are our colleagues in Belfast, Cork, Dublin and in Derry Strabane. And this is a great network of learning cities, and we're delighted that you're on board the call with us today. So I suppose, what are we doing here? The webinar should take just over 1 hour. And we have a lot of rich content to share with you about our Limerick Learning Festival, including some short video clips. And we'll also have some commentary and questions at the closing part of the event. So we hope we'll be finished by 2 o'clock, give or take 5 maybe minutes after it. So as I say, you're on mute, and I see 1 or 2 questions coming in. Just press continue if it's come up on your screen, and that tells you the video is being recorded. Today is our flagship event for the Lifelong Learning Festival. I mean, today, the year we're opening the festival, we have 100 events in the programme, and log on, it's our second virtual festival. So log on to what interests you, whether it's politics, music, art, local politics, local history, craft. Log into what interests you. It's a fantastic opportunity for us all to learn something new and to be engaged in a vibrant way with UNESCO City Learning Limerick. We're very proud of our city, and we're very proud of our links to UNESCO, and we're very proud of the learning that goes on in the city and in the region. I suppose what the title today, it's truly New Futures and New Adventures in Learning. And if anything, the last year and the last sort of 13 months, I suppose, of the pandemic has shown us that it is about new ways of learning, as we all locked up in our homes and moved to Zoom and moved to Teams meetings and moved to virtual learning. So there's no doubt new futures, new adventures in learning, and that plays out in this virtual festival. The Ambassadors subgroup of Learning Limerick has been building on their work over the last 2 years. And the Ambassadors launched their video series with a webinar event with Mayor Michael Collins last December. And many of you have seen those videos promoted on our social media. And the ambassadors then went on, and who are the ambassadors? The ambassadors are people from our learning city and from all walks of life. And they undertook a story exchange training with Narrative 4 in 2019. And this developed their own skills in telling their story, and telling their story about the city, and telling their story about the region, and being ambassadors in this region. So for this webinar, Lylian will be interviewing some of our other ambassadors. There's Tom, Patricia, Chinazo, Emer and Maeve. And Adrian from the subgroup with the Learning Ambassadors, she'll be sharing their learning adventures and hopes and plans for the future. So I suppose, as chairperson of the initiative and chairperson of Learning Limerick, it just incumbent on me to say I'm delighted to see the initiative grow. I'm delighted to see the ambassadors leading out and driving the structure of the event. And it's a wonderful grassroots initiative. It's coming from the grassroots, and it really brings the festival, it gives a life and a voice and a real honesty to what we're about. And it brings the festival to life for us all. So before we start with Lylian's interviews, I really just would like to always give a shout out to our coordinator, who's there beside me on the screen, Yvonne Lane, and who is instrumental in coordinating all of these events with our colleagues behind the scenes. So I just want to acknowledge Yvonne. I'll be acknowledging her later, but I just want to acknowledge her at this beginning here. So I'd like to introduce a short 1-minute video created by Mariola, another great member of our team working in the background in all aspects of social media. And this tells the story of the Learning Ambassadors to date. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you take it away there, Yvonne. Thanks,
No.
Yvonne. It was beautiful. I'll hand over to you to do the next introductions then.
Lovely. Thank you, Emer, and thank you very much for welcoming us all today and to speaking about the Learning Ambassadors Initiative. And I hope you all enjoyed Mariola's lovely video that gives a flavour of the events and the work that the ambassadors have been doing over the last 2 years. That's a super video, and indeed follow their video profiles and their video interviews on our own social media and our website as well from that video series that Emer mentioned. Now, I'm really delighted this afternoon that our Learning Ambassadors event today is really being driven by them. And there is no better way to demonstrate that than our own ambassador, Lylian Fotabong, is actually moderating and interviewing her fellow ambassadors during this lunchtime webinar. So just before I hand over to Lylian to take the reins as interviewer, I would just like to give you some background because we're really thrilled to have her. Lylian is a PhD researcher in applied linguistics in Mary Immaculate College, and her background indeed is in radio and newspaper journalism and public relations and third level lecturing also. And she believes that broadening her learning and professional experiences by integrating how media language offers solutions to real life issues that can heal some of the divides in our society. She twice received the Royal Power List Award as top 100 most influential Afro-Caribbean in Ireland for her contribution to media. In addition to this, we are thrilled that Lylian is a Learning Ambassador with us from Newcastle West. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Lylian now, who will moderate the Learning Ambassador interviews for you today.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, for those special words. Also, thank you to everyone who has joined us today on this flagship program to mark the Limerick's Lifelong Learning Festival. To begin this special slot of interview with our Learning Ambassadors, myself included, I feel really especially honored to welcome our first guest, Patricia Sheehan and Tom Keynes from South Hill in Limerick. Pat and Tom, you are so warmly welcome to this exclusive interview. I can see that both of you are talking to me using Zoom and that you are also sitting together. That is because you're fully vaccinated, and this also meets the certain criteria by HSE. Now, accept my profound congratulations on taking this vaccine. So Pat, I'll come straight to you. Seeing how the world has changed with COVID-19, and one solution is taking the vaccine. You have had the shots already, like I said. Could you tell this incredible audience how this makes you feel?
Hi, Lylian. I suppose the vaccine was the big thing for the last 13 years. Not 13 years, 13 months. And I suppose it was on everybody's mind. So thank God I've got both of the vaccines, and I'm only delighted. It gives me that much more comfort in my life and feel a bit more freedom, as it's been a strange year and I had to get used to living my life in a different way. And I feel quite comfortable now and I'm happy.
That is truly touching to me. Thank you for that, Pat. Tom, what about yourself? How does it make you feel knowing that you've had this protection against this deadly virus?
Well, it was tough at the start before I got the jabs, like, you know, that my daughters couldn't visit me with their kids and that, like, you know. But it was great then when I had the 2 vaccinations that they were able to visit, you know, and get back to what we used to do all the time, you know.
I am thrilled that finally you can meet your daughter, you can hug her, you can feel safe and she can feel safe with you. I am so happy for the both of you. Now, just moving on from the vaccine part, the both of you have participated in Zoom-based meetings with other Learning Ambassadors and myself with the Learning Limerick Steering Group members. And we have done so over the past year from your base in South Hill. These changes to online participation during COVID-19 has changed how we meet and normally did things like you just mentioned with your daughter there, Pat. Coming to you, Pat, how has this online experience been for you?
It's kind of been quite an experience, really, because I mean, to say this Zoom is kind of a really new thing with us. But like the COVID, we all had to change our way of life and learn how to do different things. And it took a while to get comfortable by sitting, doing the Zooming kind of a thing. We were used to being sitting face to face and having conversations. But just another little bit of learning that to take with me, I suppose. As they say, the longer you live, the more you learn. It's the true fact. So I suppose I don't feel that uncomfortable now speaking to people with the Zoom one. So I suppose that's my experience of it.
You touch on that new experience about getting more comfortable now, and it's going to get easier with time. I'm sure you can say that to everyone, that it's got better with time. Now, from you, Tom, this is a completely new area. It's like a new adventure, just like our title of the flagship. How was this new adventure really being for you?
You said it yourself there, no adventure. Well, I don't have the laptop or smartphone, but I just go off to the Family Resource Centre, and I thank Jimmy for the privilege for introducing me to the Zoom. Only for Jimmy, I'd have been lost.
That is truly powerful. But one thing that we will say here is Jimmy, while being just the lovely, wonderful Jimmy, has provided a service when everything else was falling apart. And we really thank Jimmy for his service. Pat, just moving out of your house and coming to the center to use these facilities, did that give you a break in any way with this COVID?
Yes, it did, really, you know, kind of a thing. It helped me to get in touch with my friends, which I miss terrible. And as I said, we had a club, and that was kind of lost as well, kind of a thing, kind of during the time. But we're hoping now that soon everything will go back, maybe a small bit to normal, and we might be able to live our life a little bit better.
Just finally, Tom, the Learning Ambassador route, it's not an easy one for anybody. When you just combine all of this with COVID, Zoom, technology, WhatsApp, how have you been able to combine all of this?
Oh, very, very good, very good. At the moment now, we have the drama group, and we're going shooting a short film, and we meet here in the men's shed and discuss what we're going to do with it. Like, you know, it won't be until next year. So
Tom and Pat, talking to us from South Hill, you are so remarkable. Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Can I just say one thing?
Of course, Pat.
I'd like to say thank you, big remark to Yvonne and her colleagues for organising this festival. I know that you've worked very hard, and it is appreciated. I'm looking forward to it.
and so ditto to that.
Thank you so much. I hope Yvonne and the entire team are listening to this. This has been amazing. It's a journey that we will stand to testify. But moving from Tom and Patrick in South Hill, my next guest is a very talented young woman who, like the rest of us, has had a very different year. Now, many of us in our new normal are finding it very hard. But when you must combine that with any exams, in particular, your Living Cert, it is certainly huge. I spoke earlier with this brilliant learning ambassador who for exams preparations is unable to be here with us today. Please, I invite you to watch our conversation. My next learning ambassador is an extraordinary young woman who, like the rest of us, has had a very different year. Now, many of us in our new normal will find it very hard. But when you combine that with any exams, in particular, your Leaving Cert, it must be massive. To tell us more, please let us welcome Maeve Bathley. Maeve, I cannot overstate the fact that the past months have been very different and very difficult for everyone. For you though, it is nothing like you thought it was going to be. Can you talk to us about why it has been very different?
Of course, yeah. I suppose with the Leaving Cert, you're saying nothing has really gone right this year, and I suppose you'd be right to say that. I think even from the beginning of the year, you know, we were studying for an exam that we couldn't imagine what it would be like, which as it's kind of like a trial run. We've never really seen what's happened before, and we don't know what's happening yet still, you know, even to the very end. So there's been a lot of confusion this year, a lot of not knowing what's going on, especially with online learning, and then are we back in school, are we not back in school? It's been a big challenge, I think, for everyone, teachers, students, parents even, to try and get to terms with.
But even in that very difficult and challenging environment, Maeve, I see that you're excelling extremely high. You just told me before we went live about some remarkable news. Tell us a little bit about that.
Today, as we're filming, I've just graduated officially from secondary school education, which is exciting. And yeah, I've all my accredited grade exams done, so I'm only really looking up to the last Leaving Cert exams. At this point, I've basically, you know, got it done.
You know, I couldn't be prouder. And I have come to know you as a learning ambassador, but also as a young woman who is extremely dedicated to what she does. But I know that this pandemic is a toxic environment. As a young person, what gives you the strength to go through, Maeve?
I think a lot of it has been the solidarity. I'm lucky enough to be in an amazing school environment, which I really only moved to in 5th year. And the solidarity between teachers and pupils has really, I think, helped a lot. You know, everyone is helping each other through. You know, the teachers are understanding, the students are understanding, and there's just this kind of get together and do it attitude, which I know a lot of people might not have in their secondary schools. So I'm honestly very lucky to have that.
I see a lot of poise in you. And we've sat at the same table. When I mean table, the same Zoom table. We've held conversations, and you brought in incredible, phenomenal ideas. Now, when you go out there into your next future, into your new adventures, what do you have planned?
I suppose the next step for me now is going to college. I'm hoping to study linguistics and languages, which is something I've been studying already. I do learn Japanese outside of school as an interest. So I hope to continue that. I don't know perhaps what I might want to do as a career, but definitely I want to learn a lot more languages.
That just touches right down into my own zone, because I'm doing applied linguistics. Mm-hmm. And you with Japanese, right up there. What motivated you to study in Japanese?
I think I'd always wanted to learn, you know, a language outside of school. And I saw sometime, I think maybe on social media somewhere, that Japanese was in among a list of some of the most difficult languages to learn. So I decided I'd learn Japanese. I didn't want to do Chinese because I thought it was too difficult. And I saw that Japanese was on the Leaving Cert syllabus. So I said, I might as well learn it for my Leaving Cert.
Well, you decided to take the very tough road. For any young person who is interested in this journey of learning ambassador, what is it that you can tell them?
I would say that learning is natural. It's a human trait, and it's probably one of the best things about humanity. It's always exciting when you have a passion. Learning about that passion, it's probably one of the best feelings in the world. And I encourage everyone to try learning and to follow their passions.
Maeve Bathley, thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful evening of this recording. And to everyone else, isn't that a wonderful girl, combining hard work in the pandemic, passion, and taking the difficult route? Maeve, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The very poised and cool Maeve, thank you a lot for watching that. Now, back to us in our live studio is another extraordinary learning ambassador. Just as all of us were trying to understand the COVID entanglement, he was busy finishing his first degree in business studies from LIT last year. I'm truly, truly delighted to welcome fellow ambassador Chinazo Nair here today. Now, Chinazo, please allow me to congratulate you on your brilliant completion of your program from LIT. Let me also say that in your case, I see a lot of success written all over your contract of the future. For example, you're already running your own website. That is truly remarkable. Can you give us a little bit more insight to your plans? And of course, talk to us about your website.
Thank you, Lylian. Thank you for the organizers, and thank you for those listening as well to log in. It's my pleasure and a privilege to be given this platform, and thank you for that as well. Yeah, I think I'll borrow Maeve's quote there in terms of learning. When you're learning something you are so passionate about, that you enjoy the process. So that has been the process I've been in, and which meant that it was a kind of I wouldn't want to use the word easy, but it makes it a bit easier for me to go through the process of writing my own thesis. So which 5 years ago would have been something that wouldn't have been possible. So doing what I love made it a bit easier for me. So that has been really, really good. And that's also developed in what I'm doing right now. And when I started the process, I think just like every other person or anybody, learning or going through the formal education was so hard from where I'm coming from. But I was reading a book a few years before, and I got a quote that actually really prepares me to today, that changes the way I view education. And when I speak to people about education now, I try to use the same quote to help them to see that. So I was reading a book, and it said that education is a Greek word called eduke or eduko, which meant to draw from within. So I immediately, when I hear that, it changes my perspective about education. So I'm not looking at education as something that comes in from outside, but I look at education that comes out from within. And that really have been something that have kind of propelled my journey, and also bubble up into what I'm doing in my website at the moment.
I like when you say bubble up and something that you're learning from within and not from without. That is truly inspirational. But one thing that you said is from where you are coming. Where is that place?
Well, I'm coming from an environment where everybody think that the system was against him or her. So I would have fight towards that. So I was living in an asylum environment where we have everybody staying in there. So I have to come out from that environment to be able to look at the system as something that can help me, not something that was against me. So that was a tough situation, but it also prepared me then to be able to go back and speak to these individuals. Then I become the reference to them because they can say, oh, you were here and you speak in this language. What makes you do that? So that was the where, when I say where I'm coming from, that's where I'm referring to.
That's truly gifted, isn't it? You come from that background. You go on to acquire first degree. You are now a reference to them. Some people who are stuck in the asylum system, that is a direct provision system in Ireland. And now you have moved from there. You have your own website. You are training young people in and around Ireland. Am I correct in saying that? And your website really focuses on that. Isn't that just wonderful? I mean, as a learning ambassador, how could this get bigger?
Well, I have so many ideas popping up when I read a book or watch a movie or something. But in my website, there's a page I call Coaching with Metaphor. And the whole idea really is to teach with metaphor. And the reason why I come up with the term is the struggle I have when I was learning. And I saw that I can learn more with metaphor than I could learn with stats and everything. So, and I said to myself, there are many more people who have the same brain function that I have. So how can I then translate this into a deliverable format so I can use it to be able to help other people? And that's why I came up with the term coaching with metaphor.
Fascinating. If we're going to stay here talking with you, we're going to run down the entire show, right? But just briefly and lastly, what are your plans for the future, seeing that you're already engaging in so much?
Well, my plan for the future, and that's why I love this platform, is to make education accessible to especially individuals who thought that education is meant for. So that's what the education is especially meant for some other people who is not us. But I just want to use the platform I have to be able to make education so easy to access or easy for people to and that's my goal going forward, really.
I hope the Limerick City and County are listening to this. Chinazo Naya, thank you so much for this brilliant piece. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, we are going to move straight to the next guest, a learning ambassador as well, who unfortunately can't be here, but for wonderful reasons. That person is Adrian O'Connell, who right now is at work. But she was very kind to record her interview for us today. Emma also completed her education last year and finished with a level 5 healthcare certificate. And I'm thrilled to say that she's now working at a nursing home. Now, before we go to that recording, I'd like to thank Emer and all frontline workers for their services to this nation and to all of us who are keeping us protected. So now, when I spoke with Emer, I asked her how, after finishing her education, she started navigating this very unusual new future, one that is uncertain, fueled with COVID-19 tragedies and remote communication. This is what she had to say to me.
Hi, yes, I completed a major in healthcare and intellectual disabilities with the LCETB at Coombe Family Resource Centre. When COVID-19 hit, those of us who had completed our work experience in our local nursing home were asked to return as emergency COVID workers. I did, and some of my classmates did, and myself and my classmate Audrey have remained there as permanent employees. Thankfully, the nursing home and the LCETB were able to work around us. The Family Resource Centre provided us with laptops, and we continued our courses online remotely, and were able to work on alternative days. So for me, I joined during COVID, which is what I'm used to. We're in our own little bubble there, and it's given me the opportunity to follow my dreams and further my education, as well as my career in healthcare, doing what I love and hopefully progressing, as I do regard myself as one of the lucky ones. As you know from last time we spoke, my own true life experiences have brought me to where I am today. I have a keen interest in end-of-life care, along with community work, focusing a lot on return to education, mental health and addiction awareness and youth support within the community, and this is reflected in my role as chairperson of Croom Women's Cave, where I work on a volunteer basis alongside with Laura and the team at Croom Family Resource Centre. We provide supports where needed in the community and surrounding areas. Changes going forward to healthcare, I suppose I would say stay focused in all areas. Don't forget our abilities and talents in any area, and whether it's public or private or indeed on a volunteer basis, all areas should be recognised equally as best as possible, and I feel COVID has made this quite more possible in other areas. We all have different talents and interests, and not everyone will be good at technology or even have the resources to use it. So keeping it basic is probably the best thing to go with. Don't worry too much, because if you don't know, somebody else certainly will. I would say that it would be handy if you know how to use WhatsApp and Zoom or Microsoft Teams. I suppose like everything else in life, it's good to be prepared. I completed some of my modules online during lockdown, and where I thought I was relatively okay at technology, having completed a computer course, I hadn't actually ever used Zoom or Microsoft Teams prior to that, so I was quite grateful to my teenagers for teaching me and setting it up there for me. So keeping up to date with growing technology helps in every scenario. Be mindful of growing opportunities in the face of digital growth. The blended approach is something that enables employees to further their education and career while remaining in full-time employment and combining it with family life. That's what I did, and it's what I hope to continue to do. It can get busy, but it has opened a door for me and has left me excited about my future, where I can go from here to be the best version of myself for both me and the residents I care for in the community.
It's just wonderful to hear Maeve O'Connell talk to us from a nursing center. It's really emotional, and what she does, not many people are able to sacrifice that, and we thank you, Maeve, for gifting your life to so many people out there. And I would like to do one thing. I like to come to the audience for just 1 second. There is a special person that I like to thank, and that special person has been working with Maeve. That person is Laura Bennett. Is Laura there? Could I spotlight her for us, please? It's Laura.
Hi, how are you?
There you are. I am so sorry for springing this on you, but we just cannot move forward without thanking you for helping to make a difference in many people's lives. In Amy's video, I was struck by everything that she had been able to accomplish in such a short time. But one quote that stood out to me is that her pursuit of obtaining the best version of herself. As someone who has worked alongside her, could you briefly tell this incredible audience how it is like?
Well, Emer started, as you know, like in family resource centres, like I'm in Croom Family Resource Centre, we're quite limited with staff. So we do heavily depend on volunteers. Through my work, the Emer and some of her friends and volunteers got involved in the centre, and then they created the women's group, the Women's Cave. Then we looked at about returning to education. You know, I think a lot of people through their leaving cert, their confidence was quite knocked, and they were like, oh, I'd never be able to do that. And like, my thing was, of course you could. Like, you're really intelligent, you're really articulate, you know, let's just apply for these courses and see what parents would utilize them. And it was overwhelming, the response. But Emer in particular, like, you know, she is just fabulous at everything she does. She gives it 100%. With the Women's Cave, they've done loads within the community. Even in all my mental health events, it's the women's group that come and do the food. Some people have said it's like a wedding. The food is that good. Afterwards, with very limited funding. And then they went and did the QQI level 5 in healthcare. They did the computer courses, like anything that was available to them, they utilized. They went and they did it, and they were very nervous at the start, you know, and, you know, we put in support things, like we set up WhatsApp groups so people could support each other with the assignments and stuff like that. You know, the way sometimes you're doing an assignment, you might know where to start, but just to be able to text somebody and give, you know, bounce some ideas off of, that's what we put those supports in place. And to be honest, every one of them have just thrived. Like, they are just amazing people. And I'm so lucky that I have been a part of their journey, to be honest.
Well, we are lucky that you were there to give that service. And I'm sure they too are very lucky to have had you. Laura Bennett, thank you so much for this incredible help that you're giving to everybody around you. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Not at all. Now, my final guest for today is someone that truly inspires me in my interactions with her. She is not a learning ambassador, but has been working tirelessly with them. For me, her story lights the candle of everything that is possible, because by the age of 10, she was almost illiterate. Yet by 21, she had gone on to become the first university graduate in both her immediate and extended family. And not only that, but she has also scored too many achievements for me to talk about today on this flagship program. Here too, I hope, inspire all of us like she did to me. Please, I ask you to welcome our fabulous Adrian O'Connell. Thank you so much. I can see you there, Adrian. Thank you for joining us. In one of our very early conversations, I was particularly affected when you said it wasn't until 18 when you realized that you were training to be a teacher. And when you got your first teaching practice, 1/5 of the students were same age as you. Looking at your personal story and experience, how did that make you feel?
Yeah, thanks, Lylian. I'm delighted to be here today. Hi to everybody. Know an awful lot of the faces. Now, some people are new to me, all right. Yeah, I remember telling you that story, Lylian, and I suppose the rest of the story I didn't tell you, though, in that, you know, at 18 years of age, when you go into an environment that you just don't know much about, and I ended up on teaching practice in a second level school when I was 18, and the students I was teaching were 18 as well. But I suppose I was telling that story from the point of view that the one thing that I took away from it, I nearly failed the teaching practice, mind you, so it wasn't all a bed of roses, but the one thing that I took away from it was you need to be brave. You know, I had to be brave at the time to move to the next step. And the one thing about being brave that I took away from it was it built my confidence. Every other teaching practice I did after that, and I did 4 more after that, I wasn't near to failing any one of them because I was a bit more confident about it. And, you know, I suppose you said at the start there that I'm not a learning ambassador. I'd like to be a learning ambassador, though. The others are inspiring me towards that. And I suppose from working with the learning ambassadors, I've thought a little bit more about where I came from and what I went through in education and learning. And certainly, you know, primary school, secondary school were not easy. There's no doubt about that. But one little bit of support and one little bit of taking the next step can get people to where they might like to see themselves going. You know, Lylian, listening to the others there was a common thread, I think, through what people were saying. And it was the same for me. It resonated with me an awful lot there. I think if you pursue something that you like, that you're interested in, it can make it a little bit easier. But I know it's not always that it doesn't always flow that easily for people, you know.
You have almost touched on my next question. It's as if you know exactly what is going on in my head at this time. But I'm looking at a woman who has built a career, who at 10 couldn't read or write, or wasn't sure of whether she could read or write. And at 18, she was teaching. And now she's built a career for herself, a well-respected career. And we live in the same area, Newcastle West. Now, many people here today, I believe, may relate with you and your story. Tell us, what are some of the learnings that you have achieved in those years? And how have they helped you right up in your career?
Yeah, I suppose it's a very good question. You know, I've ended up in a career that I hadn't actually set out to at all. It's probably the furthest thing that's after happening to me. I came from being qualified home economics teacher, and quite by accident, I fell into teaching adults. That's a long time ago, folks. It's over 20 years ago at this stage. But you know, I hadn't planned for it. It just happened in the situation that I was in when I was teaching at the time. And you know, one of the learning I took from all of my experience to date was to try and build up one's confidence. Confidence is something that can propel you from just getting by to doing exactly what you want to do, or doing even more than you had ever anticipated. But confidence isn't an easy thing to build up. And I suppose when I say about being brave earlier on, I think that's the biggest thing for me. And even talking to the other learning ambassadors, you know, for some of them, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, they might not have thought about speaking in public like the forum we have today. But we've worked together over the last couple of years. And you know, it's like everything. When you try it once, you'll learn from it. And when you do it the second time, you'll learn more from it. And you become a bit more confident about what you're doing. And I just firmly believe that if you're any bit confident in it at all, it will develop and you will develop, and the people around you will see that happening for you. So it will give you even more confidence when people start talking to you about it. I think, Lylian, to answer your question, if I could advise anybody on anything, it is to try and be brave, have a go at it, and see your confidence develop from it.
You're picking my mind. You're picking my mind. I hear the themes of bravery in learning. I hear the themes of taking the opportunity when you have it. This is certainly what you'll be telling the learning ambassadors, and you have been doing that anyway. So you have been working with them. Just briefly, tell me your overall experience working with us learning ambassadors.
Oh my God, it has been amazing. You know, I suppose I've been working with Yvonne for quite a long time on the steering group and with Emer and other colleagues there. And it's for many years we've been thinking, you know, we really need to get the real face of learning involved in Learning Limerick, and how would we do it? And we thought about maybe having a patron for Learning Limerick, or, you know, we dabbled with many ideas over the years. But Yvonne will be nodding at me now. She'll remember a few years ago, we had an event in Limerick in the good old days when you could meet people and have a cup of coffee in a hotel and things like that. And it happened quite by accident, Lylian. An amazing man. He's not with us here today now, but I know he's involved with Pat and Tom and Jimmy there in South Hill. He stood up and told a story. He had the whole place in silence listening to him. And, you know, afterwards, Yvonne and myself were talking, and quite jokingly, we said, he could be our patron. We could ask him to speak on our behalf on Learning Limerick. And it developed from there into the whole Learning Ambassadors situation. Now, we've been very, very lucky with the Learning Ambassadors, like yourself, Lylian, and all the others. But I think we have learned as much about how to develop something like the Learning Ambassadors Initiative. We didn't go into it, Yvonne and colleagues and myself, with a preset idea of how it might go. So we've been developing it with yourselves as Learning Ambassadors as we go along. And I suppose this year really culminated in the setup of the official subgroup with the Learning Ambassadors from the Learning Limerick Steering Committee. So we're hoping that there'll be great plans afoot in the future.
Thank you, Adrian. I'm happy and proud that we are speaking at this moment, and I'm sure that everyone in the hall could hear you. It was like a pin could drop and you would hear that pin because of how marvelous your story sounded. Thank you so much, Adrian, and for the works that you're doing with the Learning Ambassadors and Limerick City Centre. Now, this is really the end of this segment. I wish that it continued, but I want to thank everyone for tuning in, staying and listening to us today. Thank you especially to the Learning Ambassadors who have shared the amazing learning stories today. And to all the teams involved, including, of course, our very own technical team, Pat, whom I could see behind the decks. Thank you for doing a marvelous job today. I shall now gladly hand over to our very best, Jimmy, to bring us to the next show. But for today, I've really been honored to be here, being your interviewer. Goodbye for now, everybody.
Oh, wow. How do you follow somebody like Lylian? Maybe Lylian, on the behalf of everyone here, I'd just like to say what a fantastic job you have done. I'd be worried if I was presenting the Late Late Show. I'd be watching out for this name, Lylian, for a period of time. I also would like to congratulate my colleague, Adrian O'Connell. I think, Adrian, you're absolutely fantastic, and the lads, you've spoken so well. So as we're moving on in this today, it was really, really interesting to hear the stories from the ambassadors. But my role here now is we're actually joined by a number of our Learning City partners from across the country. And I'm going to invite a number of them, maybe just to talk about what they've heard today, and maybe is it something that sparked something in them. So I'd like to invite Dennis Barrett, Emer Murphy, and Denny Power. So I'm going to start with Dennis. Dennis, my old pal, we've been around a long time now. It seems that it's Limerick and Cork, so it's been around. So maybe could you give us maybe a synopsis of what you felt you heard today, and was there something that maybe have lit something in you, Dennis?
Thanks, Jimmy, and it's really great to be back with you, albeit on a screen. So Cork and Limerick, but also with Dublin, with Derry, and with Belfast, all part of the Irish network of learning cities with Limerick. So we're just delighted to be here. I'm hugely inspired by how you've gone about this particular event, and by all of the people, everyone that we heard from. So what really struck me was that phrase, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And then, you know, the positive version is this: if you can see it, you can be it. But I think it's even more than that from this morning. I think what we heard in the film at the start was the friendly face and the willingness to share a personal story. And through the stories we heard, thanks to Lylian's fantastic skills as an interviewer and her wonderful openness, really, what really comes across is that everyone has a kind of a fire lighting within them. You feel the enthusiasm for learning, you feel the challenge also. I think Adrian's comments about being brave at the end really resonated with me, and every one of the stories shared that sense of taking a step into the unknown, the adventure. I think Tom mentioned at the start with Pat, and that's what really comes across when a person speaks about something that they feel strongly about. That transmits itself to everybody, and it lights a fire in other people. And any way of spreading learning, for those of us in Cork, we really, really admire it. And they say imitation is the best form of flattery. I think you have shown us a new way. We're always trying new things in Cork, and we would love to learn more from each of the learning ambassadors, all of the speakers today. And I think you have a fantastic initiative there. Keep going with it, keep inspiring us, and we will try and learn from you and try something similar in our own city in Cork. Thanks, Jimmy.
Dennis, thank you very much indeed. And you know, again, as always, we're thrilled to be able to partner with Cork at any time. Of course, except in the hurling, which of course we're still the All-Ireland champions, Dennis, but I won't say anything more about that. I'd like to welcome Emer Murphy from Dublin. And Emer, it's my first time meeting you, so it's a pleasure, an absolute pleasure to meet you. So maybe you could give us some of your thoughts about what you heard today.
Hi, Jim. Thank you very much for the introduction. It's fabulous to meet you. I'd just like to thank Yvonne and Emer and Lylian for today and for organising this festival. It's just great, and we're absolutely delighted to be involved in any way possible and to meet you all today. It's been a really fun and uplifting webinar for a Monday morning. So thank you all again. Thanks to all the learning ambassadors for their really powerful stories, and I think everyone can agree in that. Just know that it is your stories that sit at the centre of everything that we do and inspires and motivates us in the work that we do, particularly during COVID, when it can be quite a lonely and isolating and unmotivating time. So today really means a lot to us. For the learning ambassadors, please know that you are a huge inspiration to all learners everywhere. Chinazo mentioned that of being a point of reference, and I absolutely agree. To keep telling your stories, it is so important, because it just takes one story to inspire another to make a life-changing decision. So it's so important for your stories to be out there and out to the world. So thanks for sharing today, and certainly in Dublin we are incredibly inspired, and I'm looking forward to going back to our team and talking about today to everyone. So thank you very much. It's been fantastic.
Thank you very much, Emer, and it's an absolute pleasure for us to have you join us today from the Dublin Learning City project. I would say one of the pleasant trips that I had in the past as part of this whole learning piece was to a little place up the country called Belfast, where I met Dolores Atkinson and Dolores and Danny. And I'm going to introduce Danny Power from the Belfast Learning City Partnership. Maybe Danny, it's a pleasure to see you again. It's been a while now, but it's great to see you again.
Look, it's not often that, for those of you who know me, that I'm lost for words. But I genuinely found those experiences inspiring. And in fact, I was just going to try and open up a negotiation for some transfers to Belfast, or at the very least, can you bottle some of that enthusiasm and send some of us up? Look, some of the stuff that caught me, learning means different things to all of us. It should help us to cope with the challenges that life throws at us. We know life at times can't be easy, and it isn't always an easy path for all of us in terms of learning, in terms of trying to build a life and a future. But I think the experiences you've related back to us today certainly give us some confidence in our ability to do that. Learning is about building resilience. Bravery is a good word. Is a good word for it. I have no problem with that. I liked Maeve's particular point around I've written all this down, by the way. I just let you know now that I'm stealing it. I'm not even going to ask. I'm just going to take it, and we're going to use it as much as we can. But I like Maeve's, the idea that, learning is a human trait. That idea, learning brings out the best of us, brings out the best in humanity. We all know the challenges that we all face, but learning can help to inspire us and should stir the soul, if you like. I just found it fantastic. I genuinely will be stealing some of the ideas. I'm not even joking with you. I'm delighted that we are part of a Learning City network across this island. I'm delighted that we have fantastic partners. But to be honest, it would be wrong if I ended a contribution without actually talking about those learners themselves and the inspiration that they give us to try and do the job that we're trying to do in the right way. And I think it's fantastic for Limerick. It's fantastic for the Irish network. But let's finish on Maeve's point. It's fantastic for humanity that we have such people in our midst who can inspire us. And I think you're right, Dennis. I don't know who said it. I think it may have been Dennis. Lylian, I'm voting for you. If the job at RTE comes up, and I'm there, we'll have a team of people manning the phones, and hopefully we'll get you elected. Thanks very much, folks. Really delighted to be here.
Thank you very much indeed. And I suppose that whole thing that Jenny has spoken about, which is that whole comradeship and the comradeship amongst the learning cities. I've had the pleasure of experiencing that, and just say to everybody else, but I suppose maybe what Danny has said is that today was about the learners. It's about talking, and I'm just looking, and I'm not sure, she's not expecting this, I'm sure it's okay, Yvonne. I'm looking at Katie O'Rourke from Aintas. And Katie, I see you there, and maybe would you like to give us a comment on what you heard today?
Thanks a million, Jimmy. I'll just be really quick. I thought it was absolutely amazing to all of the learners. I agree with Lylian. I think you have a future career in broadcasting. What a talent. And well done to Yvonne and all your colleagues. I thought having learners at the centre of an event is just really important. That's what Aintas, through all of our work, really likes to do. And to all of the other learning cities around Ireland, they're doing an absolutely fantastic job. So I think I've taken a lot from the event, but just it's been really uplifting for a Monday at lunchtime. And I think all of those stories, I think what Adrian said about be brave, have a go, see your confidence develop. I think that's a message that we should be spreading to anybody who is thinking of returning to learning. So just really well done to everyone. A fantastic event with learners at the centre, which is to be absolutely commended. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Katie. And thank you so much for joining us today. Well, my little piece is about to finish now. So I'd just like to say on behalf of myself, thanks to everybody for taking part, and particularly my colleagues in the Learning City partnerships. It was a pleasure talking to you. So Yvonne, I'm going to hand back to you now, okay?
Thank you very much, Jimmy, for facilitating that discussion, and thanks to our Irish Network of Learning Cities partners for not only attending today, but for all your unwavering support for Limerick. It's very much appreciated. Huge thanks of the day goes to Lylian, I think, of course, and I like all the comments in the chat. But for our closing remarks and comments, and to close out our event, I'm going to hand back to our chairperson from myself to Emer Brophy to give our closing comments indeed. And thank you, Emer.
Hi, Yvonne. Hi, everybody. Lylian, you're a very hard act to follow. Congratulations. That was absolutely wonderful. And thank you for bringing everybody through their stories. I'd just like to say to Danny, there's no such thing as theft amongst friends. There's only borrowing. So you can borrow away any of the ideas. What can I say to our learning ambassadors? This has been such an inspirational lunchtime break. I mean, tomorrow will be such a letdown, you know, to just have a sandwich at the desk. This has really been, Tom and Patricia, you brought us through how COVID had impacted, and how I loved the way Patricia said, you're always learning no matter what age you were. And you talked so well about using Zoom and connecting locally. And it was really interesting to listen to you. And Shanazo, you hit on the whole theme of making things accessible. And that reminds us on the call, those of us who work like in education training boards and the universities, of which we now have 2 fine universities in Limerick. It is about making education accessible to everybody across our communities. And Emer talked about celebrating the talents and interests and the way she was able to retrain. She did that course actually with the Limerick and Clare Education Training Board, and she reminded me of the importance of being able to provide an education training opportunity that's flexible and part-time, allowing you to combine your family and go back to school and to learn. And Maeve, we all loved Maeve's quote about the human trait. You know, it is a trait. And I loved the kind of use of the language like men's sheds and women's caves and learning and the different types of learning that are out there. So I said, it's really incumbent on me just to thank you for giving us of your time today, the Learning Ambassadors. An ambassador is somebody who represents their city, their county, their country, or their concept. And you have done that really well in representing learning. I mean, different people quote different people. I like B.B. King, the blues guitarist, and he says, you know, learning, nobody can take it from you. So continue with your learning journey, everybody, and nobody can take from us what we have learned along the way. Hats off and shout out to all my colleagues in Limerick Learning, Yvonne and the team, for everybody that's put this festival together. It's just a great week ahead of us, and we're really looking forward to it. And again, hats off to our group, our friends in all those UNESCO Learning City network, because it's to you that we work with, and we can inspire each other and steal the ideas and borrow them along the way. And on the day that's in it, because it's Bob Dylan's birthday, I think I'm going to end with that sort of using learning as an analogy. I'm not going to break into song, but I think I'll end with, you better start swimming or you sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. So tune in to the Limerick Learning Festival this week. The times they are a-changing and learning is on the up and up. So thanks a million for your time, and we'll end it there. Take care and talk to you during the week.
Thank you. Thanks, Emer.